This story begins with something we've all experienced. You're walking down the street in a random city, maybe even on the other side of the planet, and suddenly, bam, you run into your old classmate from 5th grade. Both of you stare at each other, completely shocked. You shout, "What are the chances?" And then you say the magic word, coincidence. But is it really such an impossible miracle? Or is our brain just really bad at math? First, let's look at what we think coincidence means. Our brains love stories where the odds seem impossible. We imagine the universe secretly arranging two people to meet. In reality, the math behind coincidences is much less mystical and much funnier. Take birthdays. If you're in a room with just 23 people, there's actually a 50% chance that 2 of them share the same birthday. With 70 people, the chance skyrockets to 99.9%. So in other words, if you're at a big party and no one shares a birthday, that is actually the surprising event. Our minds expect randomness to look like neat, evenly spread out patterns, but randomness doesn't work that way. It clumps, it overlaps. It looks suspiciously like fate. Now imagine you bump into your neighbor while backpacking in Peru. It feels astronomically unlikely until you realize how many possible coincidences are waiting to happen. You could meet someone who went to your school, someone who has the same rare last name, someone who knows your cousin's dog groomer. There are millions of possible small world connections, and the moment one of them pops up, your brain screams, "Incredible! What are the odds?" In fact, the odds of something surprising happening are actually pretty high. Let's try another one. Picture this. You think of an old friend you haven't spoken to in years. 2 minutes later, they text you. Creepy, right? Almost psychic? Well, unless you're secretly Professor X, what's happening is probability in disguise. You think of dozens of people every week. Most of them don't call you. You forget about all those times. But the one time it does line up, it feels magical. Our brains have a terrible filing system. They throw away boring data and put neon lights around coincidences. Psychologists call this the law of truly large numbers. Basically, if there are enough opportunities for something weird to happen, eventually it will happen. Imagine tossing a coin. The chance of flipping heads 10 times in a row is tiny. But if you keep tossing for years, eventually you'll hit that streak. When it happens, you'll probably tell everyone, "I must be blessed by the coin gods." In truth, you just played long enough for the unlikely to become inevitable. Let's zoom out. Think about how many people are alive today. Over 8 billion. Each one has countless life events, daily routines, thoughts, and actions. The number of opportunities for overlap is unimaginably huge. It would actually be stranger if coincidences didn't happen. Statistically speaking, the world has too many dice rolls going on at once for the occasional jaw-dropping overlap not to occur. And this is where things get really fun. Coincidences aren't just statistical accidents, they shape our lives. Many scientific breakthroughs began as coincidences. Penicillin? An accident. Microwave ovens? Accident. The first photo of a black hole? In part, luck. Even love stories often start with what feels like a chance encounter. So while probability theory explains the math, it doesn't make the moment less magical. If anything, knowing the math shows just how inevitable magic is when you look at the world through numbers. Now here's the real trick. We don't remember the hundreds of times nothing interesting happened. But the moment you do see your old teacher buying avocados in the same store, you'll tell that story for years. Coincidences stand out precisely because they break the boring pattern of everyday life. In the end, coincidences are like fireworks, rare enough to dazzle us, but common enough to keep happening over and over. So the next time you bump into a childhood friend while waiting in line for coffee in a city you've never visited before, don't think of it as the universe sending you a sign. Think of it as math throwing you a party. And maybe buy a lottery ticket on the way home, just in case probability decides to surprise you twice in one day. Because yes, coincidences are inevitable, but how we interpret them, that's where the real magic lives.